Okay, hi everyone. I don't know how this lighting looks. I don't know if it's giving cute or greasy, but I'm just gonna pretend we're operating on the cute spectrum of things. But I thought it would be fun to switch out my background, so that's why I'm here, except now that falling thing is really bothering me, so I'm gonna go fix it. I'm here with my coffee, I'm here with my notebook, and I'm here with my books. And today I'm going to be talking about my September and October reading wrap up because I didn't do one last month. Mostly because I felt like I didn't read a lot of good books last month, but I read a lot of really good books this month, so I thought I would combine it all into one video. Plus, everything that I read is super on theme, super fall, so I feel like as we're wrapping up the fall season, even though I think fall lasts till the end of Thanksgiving, for some, I know people are already getting into the Christmas mood, so I figured I would do a nice reading wrap up the last couple of months, hopefully give you guys that last push of fall book inspiration. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so I'm gonna go in reverse chronological order. I wrote it down in my notebook as like latest to oldest, but I'm gonna go obviously oldest to latest. So the first book that I'm going to be talking about is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. I absolutely loved this book. This is the second book in a Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I'm actually doing a whole reading vlog on that, so when I finish the series that will come out. But I really liked this book. I thought it was well paced. It was very interesting. I couldn't put it down. I had similar feelings to how I felt with the first book. However, I felt like I liked this a little bit less. There were points where I thought I was reading a lot of the same thing a little bit, so that's why it wasn't like a perfect book for me, but I did really enjoy it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Again, I thought it was really interesting, well paced. I would recommend it. It just like wasn't as good as the first one for me, so that's why it's a 4 star, and I would definitely recommend it. It's very creepy, spooky. It's a thriller, but it's YA, so I'm scaredy cat. I get scared of literally everything, so if that's you, then I feel like these YA thrillers are really good for you to get a little bit creeped out, but not actually creeped out. And it was like the perfect balance. So I would really recommend this book if you're interested. Then I read After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I really like TJR. I feel like I've liked a lot of her books a lot. I've liked, I think, Daisy Jones and Carrie Soda, both of them were 5 stars for me. So and I read Seven Husbands as well, and I liked that a lot as well. It wasn't a 5 star for me. I feel like that has a really cult following. It didn't really hit like that for me, but I did really enjoy it. So I was like, oh, another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. It's gonna hit for me. I gave this one 3 stars. I don't know. It did not give me the same feeling as her other books did. I almost didn't even feel like it was written by the same author, because I think that TJR has really, really good writing choice and or word choice rather, and has amazing writing. So it almost didn't even feel like it was written by the same person, in my opinion. I don't know. And the plot point was so, I feel like, superficial. It just didn't remind me of any of her other writing at all. Basically, After I Do is about a couple, and they are at the point where they're really struggling in their marriage. So in efforts to potentially save their relationship, they decide to take a year apart. They don't divorce, but they basically break up. They move out. They live two completely separate lives, and they decide that they're not going to communicate at all. And they're wondering if taking this year break will come back and kind of rejuvenate their marriage or whatever. I don't know. The whole thing just seemed a little far-fetched to me, to be honest. If you are I don't know, why don't you go to therapy? I feel like that's the number one thing. The second thing is, if you really feel like you want to take a year off to just do your own thing and date other people and come back, you just don't want to be married to this person. Just break up, just do your own thing. And then why do you think taking a year back and then coming back then 20 years down the line, when it's been another how many ever years of marriage, that you're not going to get bored again and you're not going to want to do the same thing again? That doesn't really make much sense to me. And the third thing too is I feel like the ending also just was so dumb. He just came back and was like, I've missed you this whole time. No, you didn't. No, you did not miss her this whole time. You were the one that walked out in the first place, and you were the one that dated other people first in the first place. So what are you talking about? You missed her this whole time. No, you didn't. And then even the whole email communication thing, give me a break. Obviously, I think it's fine if she read it because she stumbled upon it and it was open in her computer. If he knew that he was secretly writing these emails for her. Why on earth would he suddenly get the urge to like go through and read her drafts if he doesn't want her to read his drafts? Like, what are you talking about? Like, literally, what are you talking about? A lot of it didn't make sense. However, I was really like rooting for them to get together, and I do like the whole jealous type every now and again. So I feel like it was done just enough where it ticked the box of like, oh, he was jealous, but it wasn't like too overbearing or anything like that. And I thought the beginning was really well written. It felt really nostalgic. I feel like at least the beginning kind of reminded me of what I associate in my brain with TJR's writing. So I liked that too. So yeah, I would say it's a pretty run-of-the-mill book, but if you're gonna read a book by her, it should definitely not be this one. But if you've read a couple of her books and you're just kind of in the mood for something light and mid, this is a good one. Then I read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. God, I wish I could get the time that I spent reading this book back. I don't know what I have heard that the Bridgerton series is not necessarily great. Oh my gosh, no, I'm just gonna get mad thinking about this. I need a sip of my coffee, seriously. Listen, I have heard the book series is not great, but also the new season of Bridgerton, the one with Colin and Penelope, was good enough. Nothing's gonna beat season 2, obviously, but the new season was good enough. So I was like, okay, you know, I feel like I would like the plot, at least premise of this one a bit more, because it's like childhood friends and then she's liked him a long time, and it kind of gives like the ugly duckling, I guess. I don't even like to say that though, because I think she's really pretty, but needless to say, this sucked. It was so bad. There was a whole lot of like zhuzh in there that I was just like, what am I freaking reading? It's like they took a whole jar of marshmallow fluff and they just smothered the entire cake with it, and then they just put like this much cake on either side. That's all that was giving. I also saw a lot of TikToks on how, wow, this deer just booked it across the street. Where are you going, sir? Oh, I was reading a couple things on TikTok where people were saying that like the embarrassment that Penelope feels is so much worse in the book, and that he grovels so much more in the book. And that's why I even picked this up in the first place, because I was like, I love when men grovel. They should do that, quite frankly, the entire time of their existence, because men in general are just so they should honestly be groveling for even being men, you know? But then, you know, I love a good groveling trope, especially when they're wrong. So that's why I even like picked this one up in the first place, because I feel like that wasn't necessarily like the plot point in the other 2 seasons of Bridgerton, so I didn't even have an interest in like reading those. But let me tell you, this shit was ass. Like, I never say that the media adaptation is better than the book, but the media adaptation was better than the book. Dear God, this book was so unnecessarily long. It was too much. Just no. And even there was no groveling. This is not what groveling is. Go open up a dictionary, look what it is, read like an old Anna Huang book or something, and then you'll get it, because it's not this, it's never gonna be this, and nobody should ever read this. It's a 2 stars for me. I will never be picking up another Bridgerton book ever again. Then I read The Risk by Elle Kennedy, and this was, oh God, this one was horrible. This was 2 stars as well. So you can see why I didn't want to do September reading wrap up, because dear God, I was not getting a lot of good books, especially at the beginning of the month. So The Risk is like another part of the Briar universe series. It's basically, I think it's like Bianca, something like that, her, and like Jake Connolly, and they are basically, she's like a bad girl. Oh my God, I can't even like, honestly, I'm not even gonna spend the time explaining this book, because I like a lot of Elle Kennedy books. This is not one of them. I'm not even gonna waste my breath talking about it, because nobody should read this book, seriously. This is the worst Elle Kennedy book I've read, and I've read a lot of her books, like probably most of them. Read the Off-Campus series, specifically the first one, and the third one, and the fourth one. Second one, whatever. But read those. Don't read this. Just don't do it. I'm not even gonna talk about this one. That was it. Anyways, that was a 2 star for me. So here is where the tide turned, and I actually ended up getting a book that I absolutely loved, and that was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I am sure everyone and their mother has heard this and read this. I just never got around to it. So I picked it up early, or I would say like mid-September, and I loved this book. It was so sweet, so cute. I was literally talking to my best friend about this because their love story in this is so freaking cute. And I don't know, I thought the magic in this was so dreamy. It just seemed a really fairy tale and whimsical, and I thought it was really good. I liked so much about this book. I liked the characters in and of itself, like, and I also really liked the found family after Iris left home. I liked that too. Poor Iris, like I felt for her when she was going through all these things that she was going through, especially at the beginning of the book. I really did feel for her. This was so well done. If you haven't read this yet, which I know, like, I was probably the last person on earth to read this, but if you haven't, I would really, really recommend it, at least especially the first one. We'll get to the second one, or my thoughts on that one in a second, but it's just really well done. I would say the magic system is not very fleshed out or complicated in this one, and the politics, I would say, are very, very not fleshed out in this one. So if you read fantasy for that type of vibe, this might not be for you. But if you're reading it for more like romance and just like magic, like fairy tale magical as opposed to like hardcore magical, I would say this is a really, really good book. This is a 4.5 for me, in my opinion, but oh my gosh, this is just too good. Really, really recommend reading this if you haven't already. The next book I read was Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. This one didn't hit. I really liked Nora Goes Off Script by her, so I thought that this would be kind of similar vibes. Annabelle Monaghan reminds me a lot of Catherine Center, and I associate a lot of their books to kind of give me similar feelings, and I feel the same way about a lot of their books. But this one was not good. I really enjoyed Nora Goes Off Script, but this one just did not hit. Basically, this is about two childhood best friends that dated and then basically broke up, and then they reconnect like years later. She's back in town planning her wedding. She's engaged to somebody else and he's there, and it's about that. I just feel like the story, if we're gonna do this type of cookie cutter plot, at least have really nice romance and characters and angst. I feel like it didn't have any of that. Honestly, I found the boy and the girl to be like really unlikable. I find it, usually I side with one or the other, and I typically feel like I like the boy more actually, but in this one I didn't like either of them, and I feel like they didn't have much of a connection, A. And then B or C, I don't know what point I'm on now, the resolution was too quick. It just seems like it didn't flow naturally. It didn't wrap up well. It just wrapped up quickly. And I feel like they didn't even work through any of their issues that they had originally. The way, like, even them breaking up was like super dumb in the first place. Sorry if that like offends anybody, but I feel like it was. And then they just like resolve everything really quickly, and then it's just like, well, clearly y'all had like a bunch of issues because you guys completely broke up after being like totally in love. Also, again, I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but I just feel like being that madly in love at 16 just like dates this piece so much for me, or like it makes it way less, or like I feel like the romance is way less credible when they're that young, because it's not a YA book, right? I feel like when it's a YA book, and I know that, I'm like rooting for them, and I know that they're teenagers, and I can kind of go into it being like, okay, like they're teenagers, but they're gonna last forever because that's what I want for them. But in this one, it wasn't really like that, and it did not make sense. Then I finished off the Divine Rivals trilogy and read Ruthless Vows, also by Rebecca Ross. This one I would recommend, especially because I really recommend the first one. I feel like it kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I just needed to know what happened in this one. This one, though, I felt was really disappointing. This one was a 3.75 stars for me. I feel like they were two completely different books. Like, obviously the first one leaves off on a cliffhanger, and then you read this wanting to know what happens to the couple and their love story, because that's why you read the first one in the first place. And I feel like that wasn't even the point of this book. I feel like the romance was just not there, and they barely touched it. And I think that's fine if you didn't write a duology about romance in the first one, and that was like basically the entire plot of the first one. And in this one, you just don't mention it at all. This one was really like politics or like magic heavy, except a lot of the politics and the magic did not make sense. There was so much of it, but none of it really connected or made a lot of sense in my opinion. Like even the gods in this one, like it really did not make sense. Like I was very confused as to like what happened in here. And honestly, like I didn't even feel like Iris and Roman were like a couple in this one. I just like did not even feel like he cared about her at all. Like, how can you go? I loved their love story in the first book, and then this one, it just didn't make a lot of sense. And like I said, I was talking to my best friend about this one, and we both agreed, like, the politics in this, it just like did not make any sense. And neither did the magic, and a lot of like the reasonings behind a lot of things were just like plot holes or like black holes, kind of like they don't really add up. So I would read this for the sake of completeness for the story, and I did at least enjoy what I was reading for the most part. Like, it's not like I hated this book, but it didn't really do what it needed to do for me, nor what I wanted it to do, and I feel like it just fell flat. After this, I had such a good like few books of reading. I feel like I'm really in my stride. So the next book I read was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I loved this book. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I thought this was so cute, and this is the type of like romance that I like to read. It's not just super cookie cutter, but there is that like lightheartedness in there, but there's also a little bit of depth to the characters and things like that. I really, really liked this book. Essentially, this book follows Sadie, who is basically like a broke artist, and she's trying to like make her career. She gets into this amazing competition, and her specialty is like portrait drawing, and then she gets into some sort of accident, which I won't like detail, but she gets into an accident, and then she ends up developing prognosphonia. I forget how you say that. This is the same thing that's in Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Dean, if you've read that, but it's basically facial blindness. And so she has to figure out like how to draw a portrait when she can't see faces. It was really, really, really well done. I loved the story. I loved the romance. I figured out like what was going on right away, though. It's definitely not anything crazy. Like, I don't know if the end was meant to be like a crazy reveal. It definitely wasn't. I saw that coming from literally page 0. I knew who it was, but still, I thought it was really cute. Then I read 2 of my favorite books ever, which were Assistant to and Apprentice to the Villain. These are by Hannah Nicole Marr, and oh my gosh, if you haven't read this, please just read them. These were both 5 stars for me. I think this is gonna be I know this is gonna be a trilogy. The last one, she just announced the title. Actually, it's Accomplice to the Villain. I'm so excited for that to come out. This is so cute. So this right now is a duology, but it basically follows Evie, and so this is the first book. This book follows Evie, and she ends up like needing a job, and she's like literally running through the forest where she trips and stumbles upon an evil villain, and then she becomes his assistant. And it's all about that and like what happens. She's supposedly like a really good girl, but then obviously she's an assistant to the villain, and she has to do evil overlord type assistant activities, and it's really about that and like their relationship and how that develops. And then this is a continuation of that one. This one picks up right where this one leaves off, because this ends on a cliffhanger, and then you pick this up. And this one, the beginning of this is super cute. I laughed out loud for like so many of these. I loved the jokes. It was just so like lighthearted and funny, but I felt like the romance was really good, and I really like the found family. Even in this one, the romance, the side romance of like the 2 others, I don't want to like say who, but the 2 others in this one is so cute, and I loved both of these. I honestly can't even believe that I can't read the 3rd one for a while. These are genuinely some of my favorite books that I've read in a long time. Like 2 5 stars in a series is crazy for me. So absolutely love these. If you haven't read these, read them. They're so cute for Halloween, but they're really cute all year round because the book is great. So read these if you haven't. Okay, we're almost done. Kind of. Then we have Everyone is Beautiful by Catherine Center. So this one I read because obviously I loved Hello Stranger, so I was kind of looking for another Catherine Center book because I really like her. This one though fell a little bit flat for me. I gave this one 3 stars. This one is basically about a single mom, or no, girl. Well, you know what? I have a bone to pick with that guy. She might as well be. But it's about this mom that has 3 kids, and she's basically finding like, she's like not like, her and her husband aren't really connecting, and she's having a hard time kind of like finding her identity outside of being a mom. So it's kind of about that. I don't know if maybe I just didn't relate to this book much because I'm like not a mom, or like I'm not in that stage of life, but I found it to be a bit boring. I feel like there wasn't much of a plot going on, and I just think I feel like this book might be helpful for women or like parents that are kind of in that same situation or feeling that she's feeling in, but it didn't really hit for me. I feel like it was a lot of like rambling, and it just didn't like align with like where I am in my life or even like things that I would like, and there wasn't much of a plot. And then the end, they just like fell back in love. Like, what are you talking about? This guy, the guy in this book sucks. He sucks. Do not ever get back together with a guy that's like this guy in this book. And then they just got back together, and he's like, I've been in love with you the whole time. What the flying like fudge are you talking about? No, you haven't been. You just don't even care about her. You just make her do everything at home. What? And then also the teacher in this book, like, call the cops on him. Like, he is giving no, like, just flat out no. So I don't even know where that came from, because that also developed really quickly. So I feel like nothing was really developed. I feel like it was kind of like a brain dump of emotion in this book. Don't know if that was the intention, but that's why it just didn't really hit for me. But the writing was good. Like, Catherine Center's a good writer, so that's why I gave it 3 stars, but I wouldn't really recommend it. I wouldn't really read it either. And I read The Atlas Six by Olive E. Blake, and I absolutely loved this book. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. This is so fun. It basically, oh wait, sorry, I did a reading vlog on this, but if you haven't watched that, go watch it. It's my last video. But this book basically follows 6 adults that are like some of the most magical people in the universe, and they're recruited to join the secret society and train and like hone in their magic skills. And it's like kind of what transpires as their powers develop and people learn about them and their powers and things like that. This is so good. If you want to hear like my full thoughts on it, definitely go watch my reading vlog. I really liked this though. It was a bit confusing at times. I feel like there was a lot going on. That's why it was a 4.5, not a 5. And then I'm really sad because I was so excited to like read the rest of this trilogy, because it's a trilogy, and then I heard that it just goes to dog shit. So I'm just gonna really pretend that this is a one-off, even though this ends on a cliffhanger. That's why it makes me sad, but I just like don't think I can handle this series being ruined for me, because I really liked the first book. So I'm gonna pretend it's a one-off probably and never read the other 2, but it ends on a cliffhanger. Just beware, and just beware that the series apparently goes to like literal dog shit. So yeah, that's this one. Then I read 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and again, the next couple of books are in that reading vlog, so you can watch that for all of my thoughts. I gave this one 4 stars. I really liked this. Basically, this follows the main character, Clementine, or Lemon, and she is super close with her aunt, and her aunt unfortunately passes away, but she inherits her aunt's like New York City apartment that she kind of grew up in, and she like lives there now. And then she basically finds out that at certain points in time you can go into that apartment and it transports you like back 7 years in time, and then as soon as you step out of the apartment you're in like real time, and it only happens occasionally. There's no control over it, but it's about like what happens like when the apartment goes back in time, and who she meets and how that like transpires in her day-to-day life. So I thought it was really cute. I think that I really liked the first third, and I feel like I really liked the first 2/3 of this book, and then the ending just kind of didn't make sense for me. Like I said, if you know who knew about this situation, then why the hell did he like change so much, and why was he so grumpy and like all this and that? Like, he knew they were going to be reunited. So, but it was a really cute romance. I really liked it. I feel like it was, again, like fall magical. It kind of reminded me of like Twitches for whatever reason, even though there's no witches in here and no twins in here. Just the feeling that I get when I watch Twitches is the feeling that I get when I read this. So do with that what you will. I do really recommend it though, and I want to read some of her other books now, because I know she wrote The Dead Romantics, and I like this magical realism space that she writes in, so hopefully I'll be reading a couple more books of hers. Then I read the only bad book I read in October, which is Evil Under the Sun by Agatha Christie. This one is like part of the Hercule Poirot series. I got this one. It's a really, really beautiful cover, but it just didn't hit for me. I feel like I don't resonate with the style of writing. It seems really impersonal. If I like it, my mom really likes Agatha Christie, and she's like a cult favorite in UK and India, so I definitely want to read it, or read a couple more and see if I can get into it, because I do like Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, and all that stuff. So I feel like probably maybe like a different version of this. But anyways, this follows like a bunch of like wealthy people that are on vacation on a island off the coast of like England, I think. And a murder happens at the island, and it's basically the main detective, Hercule Poirot, trying to figure out what happened and like how this person was murdered. So that's what this story is about. I thought I saw the plot twist coming, and then I didn't, and then I felt a bit foolish, but it was a very underwhelming plot twist. So do with that what you will. And if you want my full thoughts, go watch my reading vlog. And the last book that I read in October, and boy, when I say finishing with a bang, it's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriella Zevin, and this was a 5-star for me. I cannot even tell you, I have not been this affected by a book in a very, very long time. There's only a few books that give me this sort of feeling. This was absolutely fantastic and genuinely altered my consciousness. Like, I feel like it altered my perception of life. I can't stop thinking about it, and I like genuinely could not move on for such a long time. It was so good. Basically the story follows two game designers, Sadie and Sam. They met when they were little. They were friends when they were little. They drifted apart, and then they reconnect, and they're both extremely intelligent, and they end up wanting to design a video game together. So it's about that essentially, but it's not really about designing the video games, although it was absolutely fantastic. Gabrielle Zevin is a genius with this book. I just can't even. It is genuinely one of the best books I have ever read in my entire life. Basically, they make these video games, and she does such a good job. She literally like puts those video games into the book. Like, I don't even know, and they're not like current video games. Like, she makes them up, which is like just insane. And then one of the video games in the book got made into like an actual video game, which I think you can play if you go on her website. So so cool. It was just absolutely amazing. It's a story about life and friendship, and I feel like a bit of imposter syndrome and narcissism and self-reflection, and I will never ever forget the NPC chapter, like ever. I will never forget that. I will never forget how I felt like reading that chapter. So absolutely amazing. I really want a special edition copy of this book, so that's the only reason I don't own it. Otherwise I would have like ran to the store and bought it, because it's just insane. Like, it's just so good. I never do this either. I watched a lot of interviews of the author after I finished this book, because I just like could not move on from this. I was like, how am I meant to go on? Like, how am I supposed to live my life right now? And she is so, her craft, I feel like she really honed it in this book. I definitely want to read a couple of her other books, but this was just insane, and I will like literally never get over it. Just the attention to detail, and every single sentence in this book is like important. And she said that in an interview. She was literally saying that like, I wanted every single sentence, every single word in this book to have meaning, and I genuinely feel like it does. And I can't even, like, I cannot even. She did such an amazing job, and I will never ever get over it. So if you have not read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, please read it. It's gonna kill you a bit, but it's so worth it, and I feel like your life will be changed. So if you haven't read it, please read it. And that's the end of this reading wrap up for September and October. I know it was a bit of a longer one, but it's just because it combines a couple of months. But I hope that I gave you some ideas to read a couple more fun books. If you take anything from this video, it's to read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And I hope that you guys enjoy. Let me know what books you guys have read over the last couple of months, and any books that give you that feeling that I just talked about, because I'm like I said, I just like can't move on. I feel like how I felt after finishing Attack on Titan, where I just stared at the wall for like 3 days. That's genuinely how I felt. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching again. I really appreciate it, to anyone and everyone that watches, and I will see you guys next time.